Okay, it is Sunday, March 14th, and today I'm working on, you see I have some rectangular steel tubing here. What I'm going to do is, well, my plan is to build a cross member here and then run the tubing up the door jamb where the rocker panel is and then to the corner of the cowls. So I'm gonna make kind of a U, like a horseshoe shape, down the rocker panel, across the back panel, and then up this other rocker panel. So that's kind of what I have planned for this rectangular square tubing. It's 2x1 1/8" square tubing. It's pretty hefty stuff. And the reason I'm using square tubing and building a little subframe is obviously once I cut the back panel off of this thing, the side cowls and the rocker panels are just gonna have not much to hang on to. So having them connected together in that U is gonna give it a little bit more support and hold it stable a little bit better and hold the cab's shape a little better once that back end's cut off. So the reason, again, another reason I'm doing that is because I wanna be able to tip this cab back over and put it upright. And now if I put it upright, it's gonna like end up landing on this rocker panel here, and it'll, with all the weight from this cowl and all that stuff on that, you know, it's probably like 18 gauge, if that, steel, so it'll just squish that in with all that weight. And I really don't want to do that. So when I put that square tubing, or square tubing here, rectangular tubing, whatever, along the rocker panel, I'm gonna run another section down here as kind of like a little leg to help support it when I put it upright on its the way it's supposed to be, sit upright. So I'll build a little leg on each side. I'll have a little leg here, and then at the back, when I put that crossbar across here, I'll probably put a little bit of a leg there. Probably don't need it, but I'm just gonna put it there just because that plate, it's about a maybe 18th thick, 16th. It's probably about 1/8" gauge plate. So this plate is nice and stable and sturdy. It's a lot thicker metal than obviously the side of the panels. So that should support the weight when I put it upright, other than, you know, the standard metal. But yeah, I might put a leg here just to give it a little bit something to stand on. And when I do that all the way around here, it's also gonna give me a little bit of a channel to weld the floor panel on versus trying to butt weld this to the new floor panel. And I'm gonna have to put some filler strips in because I cut the floor of the Explorer so tight on the frame there that there's gonna be a gap in between the rocker panel and the Ford Explorer floor pan. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to, you know, weld a little strip in there. So having that extra metal in there kind of will give it a little bit more support, a little more rigidity, and go from there. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take these things, cut them up into that horseshoe, and go from there. Obviously you can see it has a little bit of an angle here, so it goes straight up for a little bit and then it jogs in, because obviously the doors on the F1 are at a bit of an angle versus this. So it goes up and jogs to the left here. So I'm gonna have to cut a little straight piece and then cut a little angle off it, and then that piece. We'll see how this goes. So frame is in for the most part. Kind of see it. My welding is definitely not the best, but it's getting better. I did like a little 2" strip there and then angled up, following the rocker panel all the way up to this little leg there. So that'll be what it rests on. If I ever put this thing on the ground, it's gonna be put on this, not gonna bend the rocker panel. Did that on both sides. So there it is. Nice and little leg. Gonna get this as square to that as I can. Follows the rocker panel and then across. So yeah, that's the support frame. That'll help keep this cab a little bit more rigid. When I cut the back off, it's square from this corner to this corner, from here to here. Exact same distance, so everything is square, which is awesome. And hopefully it's the right dimensions. I measured off of the old 51 cab to get the dimensions across to make sure this gap is the same and this gap is the same. So yeah, that's what I've done today. And what I'm gonna do is gonna take that steel frame out. It's not welded to the cab at all, it's welded to itself. I'm gonna try to take it out, finish welding it, grind it, clean it flush, and then put it back in and tack weld it to the rocker panels. So I'm thinking I'm gonna call it a day. Getting in this U-shaped rectangular steel, this little frame was kind of what I wanted to do today. And I knew it was gonna be kind of hard because I wanted to keep the cab square. So I measured across here, like every time I welded in a new piece, I put in that piece, and then I put these little, like maybe 3-inch sections that are straight, measured. And then I found the angle, because obviously it's not straight from the back of the cab to the front of the cab. So I measured that angle on both sides, made sure that this distance from this cowl to this cowl was the correct distance. I measured off of the 52 cab, which is back here still, which still has the floor pan in it. So I measured that cowl, or that floor pan, from this distance, actually inside here. So from here to here, I measured that distance, kept that distance the same. So from there to there, made sure that distance from the 51 cab was maintained when I put these support bars underneath the rocker panels in. Made sure that distance was the same. Made sure the distance from this, I put in actually a 1/8-inch, 6-inch plate, 6x6 plate, 1/8 inch thick. Instead of what was there was rusted out. So I welded those in last time. And I made sure that distance from that plate to that plate was the same that was on the 52 cab. So I had those two distances. And then what I had to do is just try to figure out from here to here and from here to here. Had to keep those two distances, those two measurements, the exact same to keep this thing square, which was just under 67 inches, I believe. Don't quote me on that. It was my dimensions. I'm sure every other cab's gonna be different, but I had to keep that distance the same every time I put in a new piece for this U-shaped support. And then I put in little feet on the end of it. You just saw these little 3-inch feet that goes to the end of the rocker panel. So that way, if I ever do put the cab down, you know, on its, where it's supposed to be, right side up instead of on its back, that these little feet is what's gonna take all the weight, versus on this thin rocker panel, because there's that 1/2-inch gap here, it would melt, it would bend that little rocker panel back if I was to put it back down. And I didn't wanna do that, because yeah, you got this little 1/2-inch overlap of this 18-inch or 18 gauge steel that would just crumple if I was to put it straight down. So I did that, and then I was gonna put feet here, but I realized that 1/8-inch plate is pretty sturdy. I don't really need a foot there. So that's all I needed, was those two there, and then the little 1/8-inch plates there. Perfect. I was gonna try to tack weld it into the rocker panels. So I was just gonna come along through and drill little holes here. And as you can see, it's got a little bit of a bend in it, which I have to check and make sure I can flatten that bend out, because I don't like that little lip being bent up. You can see it's kind of bent up a bit. It might be because my leg might be a little too long, but I'm gonna see if I can get that to lay flat on this square tubing like this one. This one looks pretty good. That one's supposed to be nice and flat, nice and flush. There's no gap, it's not pouncing up. And got a little bit of a gap here, but again, as long as this leg takes up the most of the weight, it's not gonna squish that, which I'm okay with. So yeah, I was gonna do that, but then I realized I wanna seal this, so I wanna put some primer on this before I start tack welding it in for good. So I'm gonna probably go to the store tomorrow, get some primer up the square tubing thing, because right now it's just kind of clamped in. This is actually, I can take this square tubing thing out, which is cool, take it out, primer it up, and then when I need to tack weld it to the rocker panels, I can do that. And I'll probably tack weld it to this, down here to the square plate to give it more stability and more, you know, holding power. Because once that's done, that back panel, it's all coming out. Again, gotta drill out the spot welds on the ribs, the little sport ribs and all that. But the main reason I wanted to get this U-shaped channel in is because I want to take out this cross bracing here, because that's what's in the way of me putting this little 2x8 inside, but you know, under the door jamb or under the door frame, so I can lift it up and put it over on top of the Explorer chassis. So once I get that tacked in, I can take those cross bracing out, flip it back upright, slide that through the door openings, pick it up, put it on the chassis, and then I can figure out how much more of this firewall I'm gonna have to cut away, because that's gonna have to cut out and you know, make it work so I can fit the chassis up to the firewall. And once that gets done, I can figure out where that front fender is gonna go and line up with that tire, slowly but surely. And I'm thinking that radiator fan shroud or radiator support, this thing, might go away. I actually did order a replacement 51, 52 radiator support, which obviously is for the 51 V8 radiator, which I don't have. So I don't know if it'll be a little bit farther forward and it'll just be like a blank U-shaped thing just to hold the inner fenders on and the, what do they call it? The fender support wings, which are these guys. I bought a couple off eBay, which is awesome. So I got these little fender wing supports that mount to the radiator support, and they go off, and that's where the fender sits right on top of that little bracket. So slowly but surely, this project is coming along. Again, I'm going slow. I'm just taking my time, trying to get it done right so I don't have to redo anything. So right now, everything looks pretty straight, a little square. All right, it looks good. So until tomorrow, when I get some primer and get that U-frame tack welded in, that's what I got. So we'll catch you guys later.